lot of pressure. There's a lot, we take for granted how much pressure there is in a dating situation when you're meeting someone for the first time, where and both sides have these expectations of like, well, because I want to get married, and both sides are like having all these things that they want to take from something that's not even like started yet. It allows me to have a relationship. And the difference between, like, let's say like myself and a therapist is like therapists have a lot of red tape where they can't really meet someone where they're at. But like, that's why I choose to be a coach and not a therapist, is because I really can allow someone to be deeply just allowed to be themselves and creative and be like open with me. And that's what really allows for the transformation. And they know that I care, right? It's like, I deeply, like, I don't do anything half-assed. Like, I go 110%. And like, that's what the industry does allow me to do. But it's a shame when people kind of take advantage of that, that those gray areas, or that freedom in it, and use it for subversive purposes.
Yeah, so many things went through my mind when you said that. So for me, I totally agree with you that if you have a very popular coach, you're very likely just going to be another number if they have a lot of people, right? Because how do you remember everything, right? How do you connect with that person every time? So if you find a coach who's really dedicated to you, that's a really positive sign. One of the best coaches that I ever had early on, he was one of the most affordable ones I ever had. But he said to me, coaches look forward, therapists look backward, right? And I love that, because therapists work with your history to heal trauma, right? And coaches are like, hey, what are your goals? And for me personally, like if I had to say that there was a secret formula that worked for me, and maybe this will work for some other people, is that I found that I have a therapist, I have a coach, all right? And I also, so it's like working with my past and working with my future. But if you want to accelerate both of those, if you really want to have a force multiplier, make sure you're working out. Like, get exercise, eat healthy, right? So there's like 4 quadrants. There's eating healthy, there's exercising, there's a therapist, and there's a coach. And they become a force multiplier. They really do. And those all work together. And that's from, his name was Dave Heater. And he came up in real estate, very successful guy. And he's like, one day he's like, I'm going to be a coach. And I'm like, all right, I'll try you out. And I got this great deal because he was really good. He was really good. But I'll never forget that. Yeah. Coaches look forward, therapists look backward.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I love that distinction. That was great. And I love that you had that positive experience with that guy. Yeah, I do come across so many people who got burned, and they're so scared to like jump in and do something again.
Right.
And so it is just great to hear that from you.
All right, so let's talk about you real quick. So tell me some success stories without violating any trust that you've had with some of your clients.
I think some of my favorite ones are just when I help people come to the breakthrough or the realization, just that they have these emotions or these things that they haven't been listening to or acknowledging that are actually holding them back. And that's, I think, one of my, basically in any client I work with, because people have this idea of like, why does the past matter? The past is in the past. We're not going to go back there. It's not relevant anymore. But just through like, holding that space and teaching them some tools that they can use, right, to feel and to look at what's really going on, then they have so much clarity that they thought they had but didn't about their past, where they're like, wow, I didn't realize that going back is what I needed to do in order to go forward.
I feel like you combine a little bit of therapy in there too.
A little bit, but the difference is that I give the tools, right? And I'm teaching them. So the method that I use is called Brave Acceptance. It's a 4-step process where I teach people to feel their feelings, to accept whatever emotions that come up, and to release them. And that's something that everyone has the power and the ability to do.
That's awesome. What do you think, for you, what do you think is the most powerful result of your coaching, like that someone could get? If I was your client and I came and said, I don't know how to cry. I just be funny. What would your technique be?
The result that they get with me is that they feel good and it's lasting. And they might not even be aware that they have that result. But what happens in the difference between like when you do things that are like emotional is that emotions are a chemical that gets stuck in the body. And when things happen to us and they don't get processed properly, they get stuck. So many people walk around avoiding their emotions and just trying everything that they can do to numb them out and not feel them. And just the simple awareness that when you do the opposite, which is to feel your feelings, give them some space and some airtime, your body is brilliant and lets it go. Just in the same way you eat food and you go to the bathroom, when you allow yourself to accept an emotion without judgment, your body knows what to do and it lets it go. And so what happens is then people end up feeling good and they're like, wow, I didn't know I could feel this good, right? Because they've never truly gone through that process of like, I have something, doesn't feel good. I'm going to let my body take care of it, right? I'm going to allow that process to take place. And that is the result is I feel better.
I think that's probably one of the best answers I've ever gotten from a coach, that you feel better and it's lasting, right? I wonder, if you make this distinction, because a lot of times it's not that for me, it's not always the feeling good. It's that not feeling poor, I'm feeling bad. And I just need that to go away, whether it's anxiety or depression or whatever. And then you process that and now it's not there and you just move through life better.
Yeah. And with the processing, what comes is like the relief that you have when you could be entering, for example, a romantic relationship with someone who is, narcissistic, manipulative, and it's just not even with one person. It's just your go-to. You just you just find yourself in this kind of relationship dynamic. And what happens is like, so we can think around 50,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. We only have like so many emotions. So what happens is there's an experience, and I promise you, it's not complicated. There's just a handful of experiences where you had like a couple of emotions. And what happens is when you give that space, then you have this amazing articulate clarity that comes through. And it's not an intellectual thing. It's like your body just can feel like where you don't even have to talk to someone who's a narcissistic manipulator. When you let that emotional experience go, you can just feel it. And you're like, I'm not going to do that again. I don't know why I'm just so repelled from that person, but oh yeah, you know what? That's right. Because I've been through that and I understand that experience and I'm going up, like I'm getting better.
You're preaching right now. Oh, that all everything you just said, just, I think it just resonates. And I'm going to be talking to a clinical psychologist tomorrow, Dr. John, and I asked him to talk about narcissism and narcissists and cluster B personalities, because I think that there is a lot of misunderstanding out there. We think this because someone's narcissistic that they're a narcissist. It's like, I hate to break the news to everybody listening. You have narcissistic qualities. It's how it goes.
Oh, so true.
Right? Everyone has it. Like, and it's not a judgment, right? Sometimes they get out of control and we don't realize, or here's the worst part, right? You could just be you and most of the people in your life are not bothered by it because they realize I'm not taking that on. I understand that person's working through their stuff, but your narcissistic qualities could really hurt someone else who's vulnerable to that, who has a wound. And so you have to begin to pay attention to that. This is my lessons, right? And so I would love to hear what you think about narcissistic qualities versus narcissism versus a narcissist. Yeah.
Okay, so the question is narcissistic qualities versus a narcissist.
That's correct.
Okay, I was just clarifying so I make sure I respond properly, right? Narcissistic qualities, it's just that stonewalling, right? So that's an example of a quality where it's like you're really not available. to have any kind of exchange in a relationship, and particularly, of course, like in that emotional sense. And I think what can happen is like, so that spectrum, right? It's almost like narcissism is on a spectrum. So when you think of qualities, like the reason why like anybody could have these tendencies at any point is because people shut down and they've had something happen where, to protect themselves before they really had a healthy way to do so, they are not capable of hearing something that could hurt them, right? So that's where the narcissism comes in. And so the narcissist, like that person, is someone who, unfortunately, I mean, maybe from a young age, it just got way out of hand. Like narcissists are the most injured people in our society, right? It's not for no reason. Like there's a reason why they have these tendencies. Yeah, now they need to do something about it, but it's challenging because at the core of a narcissist, it's someone who doesn't take accountability. It's that very superficial, like, I'm so great. They're so controlling in everything that's not them, that it's like, that's why it's like you avoid them, because there's no ground that you can cover with someone who's in that state.
It's like there's something missing. It's like losing an arm. They can't get it back. And it's permanent. I feel bad because, but I believe I know a couple of narcissists in my life, and they're so wounded, but there's no ability for them to repair. And what a lot of people forget is a narcissist usually, right? They're not born that way. Something happened, right? And there's, I think, a lack of empathy for them, but therein lies the trap, because that's what they're looking for, right? And that's how they attach to people. So the question becomes, what do you do? And I think, if you have a narcissist in your life, it's all about good boundaries. But in terms of other human beings, I think you just nailed it with narcissistic qualities. You're right. It's like, and that's when I said earlier about looking at that pain. If you are a person who has difficulty taking accountability in your life, and someone is having a conversation and they're trying to say, hey, look, this is what happened, you just can't do anything else but be upset in that moment. That's the agony. You have to pass through that to get to the other side, to go, oh my God, they're just trying to have a conversation with me, and all I'm doing is being angry, right? And there's a lot of that. I think everyone has some of that.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And it's funny, like, because with the narcissists, they're so scared. Like they are the most scared people. And that's why like all of these horrible things manifest with a narcissist, is because they are so afraid to do what you just described, which is like to take that accountability and go inside and do the work.
It takes a lot of self-reflection, and it is a long process. It is years. It is definitely years.
And just one other thing I want to say on this topic of narcissists before I'm sure you have like a different topic, but my thing is really like, well, you can't do anything with a narcissist, but if you've gone through a divorce and you have a child with a narcissist, right, you have to co-parent. So like there are situations where you do, yeah, as much as like it's boundaries, it's like you have to learn ways to like work with that narcissist if you're going to co-parent. So just, one strategy that I teach my clients is like, if you really, really have to deal with the narcissist, you got to do the gray rock method, which is where, if there's something you want where it's like, hey, can you please take our daughter to soccer practice, right? I can't do it today. Narcissists, so they're very selfish, right? And they're not motivated to do things for other people if they're not getting anything back. So you have to be really nonchalant when you ask for things and not make it seem like you need it or you want it. You've got to be really neutral.
Right. Yeah. I was thinking, like, what do you do when you find that you're coaching a narcissist or someone that's narcissistic? Do you bail?
No, it depends, right? Because like we just talked about, there's differences between like a narcissistic person and qualities, is like, because sometimes like will come up and like those are not my favorite clients to work with. It is really, really difficult, and I can only take them so far. Like that's I usually work with them for a minimum period of time if I'm in that situation. But the best thing I can do is just keep the focus on that person and help them to see themselves, because they will do like almost like a demonic possession. They will do everything to point the blame at someone else. So I look at it as like I'm just teaching, even if it's really small baby steps and there's like falling backwards, it's like I'm just simply teaching that person to feel, and that leads to accountability and maybe someday them waking up.
So much I want to say. I want to talk about dating and relationships, but just for our audience, right? So I think there's a trend out there that I want to offer a small opinion to. Not everyone is a narcissist. Narcissists make up such a tiny portion of the population.
Right.
And there's this tendency to go there, and I was with a narcissist, because people get mad and they leave their ex and say it's a narcissist, and there's also the opinion that men make up the vast majority of narcissists. That's not true. It can be narcissists too. It's certainly equal opportunity dysfunction. But on that note, let's talk about relationships, because I was just listening to another podcast the other day, and they were saying that 8 million men in the United States between the age of 18 and 30 are not dating, not in a relationship, not looking for a relationship, and not having sex. And I would like your opinion. What do you think it is about dating and, men and women, right? Because it's not just women, right? Women are the way they are because of men, and men are becoming the way they are in dating because they say women. What's your take on that?
I love that you brought this up because this is such a struggle. I don't even think it's just even for the demographic that you highlighted, like 18 to 30. I think everybody's struggling with it. So, and I'm just going to share my experience. So, I am an unmarried woman, right? I've never been married. I've never been divorced. I have no kids. I am in a relationship, right? And it's interesting. So, 31 years old, my friends who are close to my age are all they talk about is like, am I going to freeze my eggs? They've got this idea on the brain, like I'm running out of time. It's a big deal for women, but it's actually not just for women. Like, men too are kind of get worried about that. And, for me personally, right, outside of like emotional intelligence, like I really try to live authentically and just lead by my personal journey, which is like, for me, I had a very specific dream and plan, which I was like, I'm going to make money through my business. I'm going to get married and I'm going to have kids. And that's the way it's going to be. And then life kind of slapped me, was like, you got to let go of your expectations, honey. Like you can have all of that, but not the way you want it. So to me, it's like, but I'm grateful for that because now, so I look at the relationship that I'm in, and there is there's an age gap, right? So I'm 31, the person I'm seeing is 48. And what I have to say, this is something I really love to share about relationships, is like, I had this idea that like, well, if I want to have kids, I have to marry somebody who's going to be, close to my age, because I want to make sure that they're going to be, be around and to be able to father my kids. And I've really done a lot of like extreme letting go. And honestly, my personal friends are like, Danielle, like, do you want to be a mother? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And I'm going to be a mother, but it doesn't like look like that with the way that I'm living my life right now. And so, but it's interesting. So I just want to highlight, because I think, to your point, is like, there are a lot of people who feel really disappointed about romance right now. There are a lot of people who just feel like, man, like all these women are gold diggers, they're really selfish. And it's kind of the same perspective that women have on men, where they're like, men are just, really just wanting to get in my pants and then just, have that one night stand and go away. And in dating, and what I hear a lot from my clients and things is like, when they're on these dating apps, or when they're trying to meet people, they're like, oh, people don't want to talk at a bar. And as soon as I message someone on like Hinge, all they want, like the first thing they tell me is that they want kids, right? And I think a lot of people in dating, and young people too, is like, they don't know how to articulate, hey, you know what? I'm looking to meet someone. I'm open to getting married. I don't know if that's you, but let's get to know each other and figure it out, right? And people lose the sense of like, let's just have fun, right? And one thing that I really value about my personal relationship right now is that like, I don't know if I'm going to marry him or not, right? And I don't care, and I'm not worried about it. Like, I'm genuinely committed to like, let's see where things go. And as long as I'm having fun, like I trust that like at the end of this relationship, because I've been having such a good time with this man, that, you know, I, it'll either be, if it ends, it's going to end amicably. And I'm going to be like, wow, I totally don't regret that I am at like 35 years in my life, let's say, and I'm not married yet, because I'm grateful that I made the time to have that relationship with him. And if we do get married, well, then great, that I've primed him in all the emotional intelligence things, and we've had good conversations. What to expect?
You pre-programmed them. I think it's really healthy. Let's get back to the crux of the original question, because I would like to know, and I'm sure you have plenty to share for both genders, what is the drive behind all these incredibly high expectations that women have? But I look at these younger men, they don't stand a chance. They don't stand a chance. And the best that they can hope to be is like the F-boy, right? And that's where they end up. What are your thoughts on that?
And that's an excellent question. And thank you for asking it, because I know that's a thought that a lot of people who are listening are like, oh yeah. So with the high expectations, I think it comes from a misunderstanding of like what's important, right? So I think women can think that, oh my God, well, what's going to make like a healthy, long lasting relationship? And they accidentally focus on the wrong things, like, okay, money, like, okay, what kind of car does he drive? Like, what does he do for a living? And along with other things, like, how old is he? And they think they know what they need, right? They think they know what they want. But like, so for example, for me, okay, I didn't meet my partner on a dating app, right? I was out, it was like maybe 2 years ago. I went out to lunch on a Sunday. I got a burger and walking out, and he's like, hey, can I buy you a drink? And I looked at him and I was like, I don't think this is going to work, because he didn't check off my boxes, right? But I also felt like I'm being judgmental and I should just talk to him and just meet him, right? And so, but I'm so glad I did, because now look at where we're at now, and it's like this has been the most fulfilling, healthy, romantic relationship I've been in. And the thing that was the difference, the both of us didn't dive in immediately. Like, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot, we take for granted how much pressure there is in a dating situation when you're meeting someone for the first time, where and both sides have these expectations of like, well, because I want to get married, and both sides are like having all these things that they want to take from something that's not even like started yet. So worked for me, and right, and maybe this won't work for everyone, but just to kind of showcase like a different example is like, we were just getting to know each other, right? Like, he was really good at like, I'm not going to try to jump in this woman's pants tonight. I'm going to get to know her, right? And so, because healthy boundaries is not like we're going to start with an intimate relationship. It's like we're going to start as acquaintances. We're going to get to know each other, and then we're going to become friends. And then from friendship, then we're going to choose to become intimate partners, right? And without articulating that whole thing, that happened over a series of like 4 months, where then it was like I had met him enough. And like, for me personally as a woman, and maybe other women can resonate with this, but I can own for myself that like, I need a lot of time to get to know someone. Like, I'm like, men are very instantaneous about like, I like the way she looks. I don't fully understand it, but I'm attracted to her, and it's very obvious. But women, it's like, I don't know. And the thing is, I think like when you get into like the more serious stages of a relationship of like engagement and marriage, it's okay not to know. And that's where high expectations are the problem, is that women need to realize that it's like, whoa, I need to let go of some of these expectations just to allow like that myself to not know, because they're scared and they feel like they have to know to protect themselves. But it's okay to go on that cliff and be like, I'm just gonna be myself, and maybe it'll be for a couple days, and even though I want marriage, maybe it'll be a one-night stand, but I'm not gonna make that mean something horrible about myself. I'm just living my life.
Yeah, I think that's amazing advice, because I think you're right. I think everyone's like, we're looking for someone, and like, oh my God, are they the right one? Are they not? And we're pulling forward and pulling back. And I think too, there's so many games, like the texting would wait a day to respond. They'd ask a question, you'd give an answer, which would require another answer from them, and they'd wait a day. It's like, it's if it's that hard, it's not right. It's not a right relationship, right?
Yeah, I hate to say, but people approach it's both men and women are so, I think, burnt out from dating where, it's like, it's very guarded. Like when somebody's not responding immediately like that, it's like, they're like, there's a hesitation. And the thing is, like, if you're really wanting to meet somebody, like you've got to find it within you to like go all the way, right? And because you're gonna get rejected. And it's not just men who get rejected, like women, and that is something too that women I think need to do, is to allow themselves to get rejected as well, which I think is what's hiding in that messaging back and forth, which is like, I don't know, like, but avoiding that possibility, right?
Right.
And I think with the technology, it does make that more difficult. And it's like, it is kind of a game, maybe even unintentionally, where it's like, you don't know how many other people they're talking to.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Yeah. I would say too that I am, especially over the last 4 years, I've been very discerning, right? And I try to communicate well because I don't like hurting anyone. But what I've noticed about women is most women do not take rejection well at all. Like you talk about that narcissistic trait. It's like rather than say, "Oh, okay, he knows what he wants," and I'm not that, and that's okay. It's like, screw him. I'm going to ruin his life. Like, I can't tell you how many women out there are like that. They're so vindictive, like just by you just saying no. And I understand why a lot of guys are reticent to date or approach women, because if for some reason you reject them, you don't know like what's going to happen. You don't know what they're going to do. And there's very little repercussions for female bad behavior. And as men, we don't have any recourse. Like they behave bad, they do something, they make an accusation, and you got to live with that. There's no recourse. So why even take the risk? And I think that's more prevalent among young men. And they're complaining about that. That's why there are so many young men that don't even approach women at bars. Right. So one of my friends was just telling me just 2 days ago, it's like in New York City, like you go to a bar, it's all women. There's almost no guys. Right. And that's not true up here in New Hampshire. I'd say that there's a pretty good mix of both genders, but I feel like when I'm at a bar, I'm the only one talking to women. Like the women, unless the woman came in with somebody, the guys are over there and the women are over there.
What I want to say too is I think you probably have more skills in talking to people than young men today. And
And I'm not, and let's clarify that, I'm not anything special. It's just that they were never taught how to have conversations.
yeah, but because and this is kind of what's fortunate about being an entrepreneur, is like we kind of have the understanding that like, okay, we're primed for rejection, where it's like, I'm just going to try this. And if I don't ask, it's already a no. So why not just ask? Right. But I think what's happening is like, I'm making an assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you, based on the age that you told me, right? You're coming from a generation before iPhones, and where you have to like, you're driving somewhere and like, you have to figure it out on a map or stop and ask somebody, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's unfathomable to like men my age, right? 18 or 30, right? Where it's like, we've always had the Google Maps, we've always had to do it on our own, right? Type of thing, or we could, right? That's unfortunately setting people up for like some kind of failure, because it's like, there's a lot of pressure to like put yourself, like to approach a woman with the idea that I'm gonna like maybe date her, and this is gonna become something. Like, we gotta lower the pressure bar and just like talk to people and let it be okay just to talk to people, because that's really what it is that people are afraid of doing.
I like how you said that, the pressure bar. I'm gonna steal that. I'm totally gonna steal that, right? Because let's be really specific. Most of the pressure is self-created.
Totally.
I talk to young men all the time, and I do feel bad for them. And I've got ADHD, which is why I can be super focused and jump around to all this stuff. But there's something about it, like I just need that dopamine hit. So like it's just talking to someone I don't know gives me that dopamine hit. So I am gravitated, like the more I'm afraid to talk to somebody, the more I am gravitated to go do it. So that's probably why that is. And not only that, is that I appreciate the rejection. And like, because I want to understand, like, if they reject me, why are they rejecting me? And can I make it funny so that we can part, like, without making it awkward? Right. So I do that. And that often, like, that will spark up the conversation. Like, they'll be like, no, I got a boyfriend. And I'll be like, so what's something I stole this online and I changed it around a little bit. So this woman once said to me, I have a boyfriend. And I thought that she was lying because that's what a lot of women say to make guys go away. So I figure you have to not pressure, but push back a little bit. And I find that a lot of women want that. They actually want a guy to fight for them, right? So I said to her, do you know what your boyfriend and my taxes have in common? And she's like, no, what? I said, they're both getting cheated on this year. And so it's such an icebreaker. Like, she laughed, her friends laughed. It's such an icebreaker, right? And I think that if people would develop just a little bit of wit, right? Just a little bit of wit, it takes the pressure off. Everyone has a little fun, right? Anyways,
go ahead.
That's just me.
I think that's genius, Doug. And that is really like, yeah, I'm glad that that's recorded because more people need to hear that, because that does take the pressure out, and it also gives you something to like walk away with that's fun, and that's really what's missing is like people just need to have fun.
Right.
It needs to be because it's like, oh, like they're thinking too much about it. Like, just have fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think that 9/10 of getting anyone's attention, male or female, is making the process enjoyable. But if you approach someone and you're nervous and you're like, oh, it's so awkward, right? It's so awkward. I think that both people come away like, she's like, oh, that guy's a creep. And he'll be like, wow, she's just cold witch, And that's not it at all. I just think that the energy that you bring to the approach is critical, right? Because even if she's having a bad day, even if she is a witch, you have the opportunity to affect that, right? Maybe she's just looking for someone to be funny, but you also have to respect those boundaries too. Like, this is where the emotional intelligence comes in. You have to be able to read somebody. You have to know when not to, or when they are clearly, completely like not into talking to you, because some people do go to bars to talk to friends. They're not there to pick up a guy or a girl, right? And that's part of, I think, the challenge and the mess that men have, because we're expected to do the approach, right? And guys are like, we're done.
Yeah, and it's very true what you highlight. Like, guys are like, oh God, what do I want to say? Yeah, they feel like, man, like, because the women are so aggressive, where it's like, I'm just not even going to approach anymore. The thing that I want to say that you made me think of is that there's such a polarization and such like a repelling thing going on in dating, and the way to break it, whether you're a man or a woman, is to lead with vulnerability.
Oh,
right?
Right. Authenticity.
Yes. Where it's like, just, hey, I want to try. And like kind of what you're saying about like, the emotional intelligence that you highlighted is really great. And it's great if guys can like, read that, but it's also okay just to try. And maybe you didn't read it correctly. You got it wrong. And she's mad. And it's okay just to be vulnerable and be like, I'm sorry, I thought you were cute. I just wanted to talk to you.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't take that as a compliment, like, you didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, I agree.